Welcome to the debate. What happens when you do exactly what society asks of you? You go to school, you get a full-time job, you budget your money, play by the rules,
Right.
and you still end up mathematically bankrupt. Today, we are looking at an American landscape that appears to be functioning on the surface, but underneath, it is fundamentally fractured.
Yeah, millions of people are waking up to this deeply sobering reality, where daily existence in the U.S. has just become financially and emotionally unlivable.
Exactly. So the central question we are debating today is this. Is this crisis fundamentally a structural economic failure driven by the inescapable mathematics of basic needs, or is it primarily a psychological and spiritual collapse stemming from the loss of predictability and the betrayal of the social contract?
Right, and we're looking at this directly through the lens of recent reporting on the American middle class.
I'll be arguing that this crisis is strictly a mathematical impossibility. The sheer, unavoidable cost of survival has broken the working class because the literal numbers no longer add up.
And I'll be taking the position that the true fracture is psychological, because while the numbers are undeniably brutal, the actual crisis is driven by a complete collapse of predictability, which has mutated the American dream into a desperate desire for escape.
Well, let's jump right into the mechanics of this, because I think a lot of Americans feel this in their bones.
Oh, absolutely.
From my perspective, the foundation of this crisis is what we can call savage math. People are doing everything they were told to do, but the math still does not work. We are operating inside a system where the absolute cost structure of daily existence is rising simultaneously across every single category.
Yeah.
While wages, adjusted for that inflation, effectively shrink. It's not a feeling, it is arithmetic.
Okay, but
Let me just give one example. If a median worker is earning $22 an hour, they're bringing in about $45,000 a year before taxes. But then they hit the housing market.
right, which is brutal right now.
Right. A $1,500 rent now routinely demands an income of 3 times the rent, meaning they need $4,500 in monthly income just to pass the algorithmic qualification test. You are mathematically obliterated before you even start your month.
Okay, the math you just laid out is staggering. I'll give you that. But I'd push back on the idea that the arithmetic is the core of the rot. I really believe this is not just about money. It is about exhaustion.
Exhaustion from the math, though.
Well, yes, but the deeper crisis we are seeing right now is the stage after burnout. Normal stress, even severe financial stress, like saving up to pay off a massive debt, it has a finish line.
Sure.
It comes with a recovery window. But what Americans are experiencing now is a total collapse of predictability. People are reacting to a national atmosphere of quiet alarm where income no longer guarantees housing.
Right.
And education no longer guarantees opportunity. The framework of American life hasn't just gotten more expensive. It has fundamentally lost its meaning.
But, the meaning is lost because of the underlying economics. The middle class did not disappear overnight. It was squeezed year after year. Let's look at how that squeeze actually operates.
Okay.
We have transitioned into an economy that has learned how to turn every corner of life into a toll booth. It is rarely one massive, catastrophic expense that ruins a family anymore.
Right, it's the everyday things.
Exactly. It's the fact that basic groceries now easily turn into a $150 receipt just for essentials like eggs, bread, and detergent. It's the mechanism of modern pricing. We aren't just dealing with supply and demand anymore.
We're dealing with the financialization of basic needs.
Yes, algorithmic price optimization. Corporate landlords use software to push rents to the absolute maximum threshold a zip code can bear. They deliberately keep units vacant if it means driving up the average yield.
Right.
A used car payment is hitting $500 to $700 a month, plus insurance. Phone plans are creeping up to $160. The reason this is an economic structural failure rather than a psychological one is the lack of any mechanism for escape.
You cannot budget your way around electricity. You cannot positive think your way out of a rent increase. You cannot clip coupons to offset a $20,000 annual childcare bill. The system is broken because the absolute costs of essential survival have exceeded the median capacity to pay for them. It is a structural cage.
It is a cage, yes. But I look at the exact same landscape and see a different mechanism of harm. That's a compelling argument,
But have you considered that the anxiety comes more from the unpredictability than the price tag itself?
How so? Look closely at the reality of healthcare in this country. It's the perfect lens for this dynamic. Structurally, yes, a family paying $1,200 a month for premiums is an enormous drain.
A massive drain.
But let's unpack the behavioral economics of that family. They're paying $1,200, yet they still hesitate to go to the doctor. Why?
Well, because of the deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums, which, again, is a financial constraint.
It's a financial trigger, but the mechanism of the harm is entirely psychological. That premium is just the entrance fee to a labyrinth. After that come the co-pays, the out-of-network surprises, and the terrifying possibility that an insurance adjuster simply decides a necessary service isn't covered.
Right, you never know what you'll actually owe.
Exactly. People are paying a massive premium to be protected, yet they are living in terror of actually using that protection. That is cognitive dissonance on a massive scale. They stretch medication. They ignore symptoms.
Yeah.
They avoid dental work. That is a country forcing its citizens to calculate whether being treated is worth becoming financially wounded.
But wait, if that family had robust savings and a predictable cost of living in other areas, an unexpected $500 medical bill wouldn't trigger an existential crisis?
Maybe, but
The unpredictability you are talking about only destroys the nervous system because the financial margins are microscopic.
I don't think it's just about the margins, though. The real damage to the human nervous system happens because you don't know what bill will rise next or whether saving money even matters.
I see.
When a single medical emergency can erase 6 months of disciplined saving, the foundation of your reality crumbles. The psychological toll of realizing that you are permanently unsafe, no matter how meticulously you budget, is what breaks people. The numbness we are seeing across the country adapts, it lowers expectations and quietly cancels dreams.
I see why you emphasize that feeling of being permanently unsafe. But we have to recognize that the feeling is generated by literal structural deprivation. A single missed paycheck becoming a late fee, which becomes a credit card balance at 29% APR.
Yeah, that's a vicious cycle.
It isn't a psychological state. That is predatory financial engineering. The system treats poverty like it's a failure of personal discipline, but the reality is survival math. Every dollar is assigned before it arrives.
So if the math is literally impossible and the cage is that tightly locked, why haven't we seen a massive revolt? Why do people keep participating?
Because they are tied to employment. Work is the only mechanism provided to survive the toll booth.
Exactly. And that transitions us perfectly into why the psychological fracture is so profound. Work was supposed to be the reliable escape route.
Right.
The agreement America sold for generations was the meritocratic promise. If you get up early, build skills, and accept pressure, your paycheck will eventually create stability. The bars of the cage you are describing are forged by the betrayal of that specific promise.
And work has completely failed to hold up its end of that mathematical equation. Employment today functions like a subscription service where the worker is the product. We've seen a complete decoupling of productivity from compensation. Since the late 70s, worker productivity has skyrocketed, but wages, adjusted for inflation, have barely moved. Let's look at the numbers again, because they dictate the reality on the ground.
Go ahead.
A full-time worker making $20 an hour earns about $41,600 a year. How can that possibly function as a safety net when rent alone in many mid-tier cities eats up to $2,000 a month? You are mathematically insolvent before you buy groceries.
The inadequacy of the paycheck is undeniably painful, but I come at it from a different way. The deeper wound, the one that actually breaks the spirit of the electorate, is the betrayal of the psychological contract.
In what sense?
For older Americans, the change feels personal. They remember a different version of the middle class, where loyalty to a company was actually reciprocal.
That's true, the pension era.
Right? We have an entire generation of older employees who give 20 or 30 years to a single workplace only to be removed in a single 15-minute Zoom meeting by a private equity firm looking to optimize a quarterly spreadsheet. They are then thrown into a labor market that praises their experience, but quietly refuses to pay for it.
But again, isn't that betrayal rooted entirely in the loss of the paycheck and the loss of the pension? If they were laid off and had a robust social safety net and guaranteed housing, the betrayal wouldn't matter. It matters because it means financial ruin.
No, it is the realization that effort and loyalty no longer guarantee safety. It is the death of meritocracy in the public consciousness. And it's not just older Americans either.
You mean the younger workforce?
Yes. Look at the younger generation entering the workforce. They take on massive, non-dischargeable student loan debt because they were told it was the entry ticket to the middle class.
Right. The degree is the ticket.
They enter the market with degrees only to find entry-level jobs requiring 3 to 5 years of experience, offering wages that don't cover a studio apartment. The crisis isn't just that wages are low. It is that the very rules of the game have been proven to be an illusion.
I don't disagree that there is profound disappointment, but the illusion is shattered by the macroeconomic reality. Corporate America has aggressively rebranded exploitation to extract maximum labor for inadequate pay.
That's certainly true.
They implement lean staffing models, call it efficiency, and demand that one employee absorb the work of 3 people who were laid off. And instead of compensation, what do they offer? Wellness seminars.
Oh, the wellness apps?
Yes. They tell workers to meditate, to practice mindfulness, to download a mental health app, while the actual source of their stress, the stagnant payroll system, and the skyrocketing cost of living sits completely untouched. It is an economic shell game.
But the fact that they offer a wellness app instead of a raise is exactly my point. That breeds a unique kind of psychological cynicism. If a person works 50 or 60 hours a week and still cannot afford housing or rest, they don't just feel broke.
What do they feel?
They feel deeply betrayed. They actively reject the lie that effort alone still guarantees escape. That is a psychological rupture. It changes how a citizen relates to their own country and their own future.
I hear you, but let's ground this rupture in what people are actually doing. They aren't just sitting around philosophizing about the death of meritocracy. They are being forced to physically alter their living situations because they cannot afford the physical space of the American dream.
Because of housing.
Exactly. Housing is the ultimate proof of the structural failure. It has become a locked door with a financial checkpoint.
I agree housing is essential, but how people are reacting to it proves my point about the mutation of the dream.
Let me lay out the mechanism first. A $350,000 home might look average historically, but when you factor in a 7% mortgage rate, inflated property taxes, and home insurance premiums that are skyrocketing due to climate risks,
The monthly payment becomes an impenetrable wall.
it does. In expensive states, a modest home translates to a $4,000 or $5,000 monthly obligation. When people realize that work no longer opens that door, they are forced into what I view strictly as survival management.
You're talking about the downsizing trend.
Yes, exactly. When adults move back into childhood bedrooms, when 30-something couples share homes with roommates, when people choose cramped one-bedroom apartments because 2 bedrooms are mathematically absurd, that is forced economic retreat. Let's do the arithmetic again.
All right.
An $1,800 rent is nearly $22,000 a year, and that's before a single light switch is flipped on. A standard car note plus insurance is almost $1,000 drained every month before you even put gas in the tank or pay for a repair.
It's a huge burden.
People are not choosing minimalism because they've had a spiritual awakening. They are choosing less because more became dangerous. A bigger apartment means higher rent vulnerability. A larger home means higher taxes and massive debt exposure. They are consolidating their lives to avoid total ruin. It is an accounting decision.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. It might start as an accounting decision, but it evolves into something much more profound. Evacuation thinking.
Evacuation?
Yes, this goes far beyond budgeting or tactical retreat. When people are forced to downsize enough of their lives, the final inevitable question becomes, why stay inside a system that keeps demanding sacrifice without giving security back?
Well, they stay because they have to. I mean, where else are they going to go?
That's just it. They are actively looking for where else to go. We are seeing incredible shifts in behavior. Ordinary middle-class people are spending their evenings researching visas for Portugal, Mexico, Spain, and Thailand.
Wow.
They are looking into van life, tiny homes, living on boats, or buying off-grid land in the desert.
This is not casual wanderlust or a vacation planning session. A person does not research expatriating to another country at midnight because their life is going well.
But they are doing it because comfort in America has been priced behind a wall. They do it because a basic apartment costs $2,000, healthcare demands $1,000 monthly, and the math doesn't work. It always comes back to the math. They are looking for a geographic arbitrage, earning in dollars and spending in pesos or euros. That is a macroeconomic strategy, not a psychological surrender.
I completely disagree that it's just geographic arbitrage. The math is the trigger, yes, but the outcome is a fundamental mutation of the American dream itself. Historically, the American dream was about accumulation and ascent. How do I get the bigger house? How do I get the promotion? How do I win the game? Today, millions of people are no longer asking how to win. They are asking where might life hurt less?
Because the game is rigged financially.
But the shift from wanting to win the game to wanting to escape the game entirely is a massive shift in national identity. Millions of people are emotionally detaching from America. They are actively imagining lives with less status, fewer belongings, and sometimes a completely different flag above their heads just to buy back their peace of mind.
That's a strong claim.
The ultimate sign of a system's collapse isn't just high prices at the grocery store. It is a population quietly planning its exit from the machine entirely. A country can survive recessions, it can survive inflation and supply chain shocks and high interest rates, but it cannot survive forever when its own people stop dreaming inside it. The coldest, most terrifying sign of societal collapse is a population quietly planning its evacuation.
It is a devastating image, and I think we can both agree that the behavioral shift is real. But as we draw this discussion to a close, I have to maintain that this crisis remains at its absolute core rooted in a fundamentally broken economic cost structure.
The literal price of shelter, food, and medicine has made the arithmetic of American life impossible to balance for the median wage earner. When you cannot afford to live, the ensuing numbness, the desire to escape, the evacuation thinking you describe, those are all just symptoms of structural mathematical deprivation. The math of daily life has simply become savage, and until the mechanisms of wage stagnation and asset inflation are fixed, no amount of psychological reframing will solve the problem.
And I maintain that the true legacy of this era will not be recorded in ledgers or inflation indexes, but in the psychological detachment of a population that finally realized the rules of the game no longer apply. The absolute unpredictability of basic survival and the profound betrayal of the social contract have fundamentally altered the nation's spirit. We have replaced the pursuit of progress with a desperate, exhausting search for relief. And a society built on exhaustion is inherently fragile.
Yet, despite our different angles on the root cause, we clearly converge on the central, tragic reality of this moment. Millions of Americans are currently functioning. They are waking up, clocking in, paying whatever bills they can manage, but they are no longer fully alive inside the life they are being asked to endure.
That is the most haunting part of it. The machine keeps running, the GDP keeps growing, the stock market hits record highs, but the people powering the machine are running out of oxygen. Looking at this issue through both the mathematical constraints and the psychological toll is crucial to understanding the full picture.
Absolutely. We started this hour asking what happens when you do everything right and still fail. What we've uncovered is a systemic condition, completely invisible in the broad economic metrics that politicians like to quote, but felt deep in the bones of everyone trying to navigate it.
The headline data doesn't show the exhaustion, but the exhaustion is real.
Very real. We will leave you, our listeners, to form your own conclusions about where this leaves the future of the American dream. Thank you for joining us on The Debate.